Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our 209th Ready Online Sports Economics Seminar. It is a great pleasure to have Matthew Bond with us, and he's already put his title up so I can read it without having to go and check my notes, which is Quantifying the Cost of Refereeing Errors. Oh no, you've moved off my screen now, Matthew. Oh, I
Oh,
can't do
sorry.
it.
Oh, yes, it's moved, hasn't it? Apologies.
It's all right.
It's
Just while
the
Matthew gets going, just to say, obviously, please keep your microphones muted while we are going along today. And as you'll have seen in the reminder sent out this morning, we've got a full set of talks between now and after Christmas, which is great. And so I'm delighted that everyone has put their names forward and filled slots. If you do want to present, there's still lots of slots in January and February into 2026. I will do my standard plugging of our football analytics conference up at Oldham Athletic on the 10th of December. And if you're especially keen, you can join us on the 9th for a League Two clash between Oldham Athletic and Walsall, current League Two leaders, Walsall, in fact. Matthew is happy to take questions as he goes along. And without any further ado, therefore, I will hand over to you, Matthew. Please do take away your talk.
Thanks, James. Yeah, so thanks for having me. Good afternoon to everyone, or good morning to you, depending where you are in the world. So what I'm going to talk about today is the second paper within my PhD thesis, and the title is Quantifying the Cost of Refereeing Errors Without Video Assistance Referee in Football. This is done with my co-author and my first supervisor, Professor E. McHale. So a little bit of an introduction. So the English Football League came to my supervisor Ian and said to him, we want to find out whether incorrect decisions evenly balance themselves out across a season in the championship. So we thought that we could kind of take this analysis from the data set that gave us and look to compare key match instances data from panels between the Premier League and the Championship. So the Championship doesn't have VAR and the Premier League does have VAR. So we can kind of calculate and quantify the cost of the Championship not having VAR. So just a bit of background on the Championship. So this is the second division within the English pyramids. As I said, the Championship doesn't have VAR. The top two teams get automatic promotion to the Premier League, which is worth approximately £200 million, and it has increase in TV revenues, sponsorship increases. And then for those teams that get promoted into the Premier League, they also receive parachute payments for 3 seasons, unless the team is relegated in the first season, which they then only get 2 seasons worth of parachute payments. We then have the next top 4 positions from 3rd to 6th. These are known as the playoff positions, and at the end of the season, in the playoff positions, 3rd plays 6th, and then 4th plays 5th in a 2-legged match. And the winners of those games then play each other at Wembley in the playoff final. And this is what is known as the richest game in football, because whichever team wins automatically gets promoted to the Premier League. We then have positions from 7th to 21st, which all receive approximately 7 million in TV revenue, and then we'll be in the Championship the following season. And then we have the bottom 3, so from 22nd to 24th, and these will be relegated to League One. We'll have a huge financial losses, risk of losing key players, and then they'll only receive 2 million from TV revenue within League One. So then we got given some data from what's called the Key Match Instances panel, and essentially each week after the games are played in the Championship or the Premier League, this panel comes together, which is made up of 5 former players and coaches, 1 representative from the league and 1 representative from the PGMOL. And the PGMOL is basically the refereeing body. So the way that it works in England is that you have the Premier League, and then you have the English Football League, the 2 separate identities, which goes from the Championship, League One and League Two. And the referees are their own independent body that the Premier League and the English Football League hire to referee their games. And then it's up to the refereeing body to decide which referees will take which games. And so each week, these forwards and players and coach comes together and they basically decide whether these key match instances, whether the referee made the right decision or the wrong decision. And so I think it can be quite controversial because there's 5 of them. And if 3 of them say that they think it was the correct decision and 2 of them think it was the incorrect decision, then it gets put down as being the correct decision. Whereas if it was 3 for incorrect and 2 for correct, it would then go down as incorrect. Unfortunately, within our data set, we don't have that information of kind of how the panel have voted. I think it would add a lot to the analysis if we did know that. So yeah, so for the championship, this is a summary from the data set that we were given from them. So in total, there was 1,579 key match instances that was analysed from 521 matches. Within the championship, there's 522 matches. So there was 31 games without any key match instances. In total, the referees made 1,351 correct decisions and 228 incorrect decisions. So it's quite a lot of decisions across the 552 games. It's almost 1 every 2 games. So this is split into 5 different types. So we've got type 1, which is goal awarded or not awarded, in which there was 326 correct and 61 incorrect. 104. So for straight red cards, there was 111 correct and 29 incorrect. Second caution dismissal. So this is where a player is given a second yellow card. In this case, there was 60 correct and 12 incorrect. Type 4 is denial of a goal scoring opportunity. So this is where a player goes through 1v1 against the goalkeeper and the defender will kind of go to tackle them and foul them. And this is where they're given a straight red card. So in this type, there's 48 correct and 14 incorrect. And then for penalties, which is the biggest, we had 806 correct and 112 incorrect. So we're going to measure the impact of these incorrect decisions. So to do this, within the first paper within my thesis, we created an in-play forecasting model that adjusts based on player ratings. So we calculate ratings for each individual players, and we take the sum of the home team's ratings and minus the sum of the away team's ratings. And it's the first in-play forecasting model that's able to adjust based on substitutions. So we're going to use this example from Southampton versus Norwich, which was on the 12th of August 2023, and the final score was 4-4. So you can see just before the 25th minute, probably about the 20th minute, there was a correct decision. And then just after half time, there was also another correct decision that they analysed. And then in approximately about the 63rd minute, I think it is, there was an incorrect decision. And then there was another correct decision at the end of the game as well. And these dots represent where the expected points would have been for each team. So to calculate the impact of each incorrect decision, we calculate the expected points before the incorrect decision, and then we calculate the expected points after the decision as if the correct decision has been made. So it's worth noting that all events are independent. So if we look at this, back to this game, when we're calculating the impact of the second incorrect decision, we don't calculate it as if this goal had counted. So they're 2 separate independent events. So to do this, we say that the cost of the incorrect decision is the absolute between the expected points for the correct decision minus the expected points for the incorrect decision. And then we've got the special case of penalties. So approximately the expected goals for a penalty is 0.75. So essentially you've got a 75% chance of scoring a penalty. So we say that the cost of the incorrect decision type 5 for penalties is 0.25 multiplied by the expected points of the incorrect decision plus 0.775 of the cost of the incorrect decision. So then for the impact of these incorrect decisions, we can calculate the change in expected points, and we can then accumulate this across the course of a season for each team. So looking at this Southampton Norwich game, so we're looking at this one here. So the current score is 3-3, and goal is not awarded as the linesman has raised his flag to say that Sargent is offside. So this decision has gone for Southampton and against Norwich. So before the incorrect decision happens, the current score is 3-3 in the game, and it's the 60th minute. And the expected points to Southampton is 1.31, and the expected points to Norwich is 1.22. So after the incorrect decision happens, we now have to model as if the correct decision has happened. So the linesman hasn't raised his flag and the goal is counted for Norwich. So the score would have then been 3-4 to Norwich in the 60th minute, and the expected points changes. So Southampton have 0.43 expected points, whereas Norwich now have 2.34 expected points. So this is an expected point loss of 1.12 for Norwich, whereas for Southampton, they've gained 0.88 expected points. So we can look at the impact on each teams across the whole season if we look at all these independent events. So the most noticeable one is Rotherham. For this season, they had 6 decisions go against them, and they had 19 decisions go for them, which they kind of ended up being an outlier in the data set, where they gained 13.86 expected points from incorrect decisions going in their favour. Like I said, we think this is an outlier. Unfortunately, we don't have any other data to compare it to. So we've kind of only got this season. So we don't know whether this would happen in other seasons. It's worth noting that Rotherham also did finish last that season, so it didn't save them from relegation. We then see Middlesbrough at the other end of the table, where they lost 5.69 expected points across the season, with 14 decisions going against them and only 4 decisions going for them. And then we have, say, Leeds, for example, where they had an equal amount of decisions go for them of 13 and 13 go against them. But despite this balance, they ended up with a negative expected points lost, kind of highlighting how different game scenarios matter. So if the game's 1-1 and you should have got a penalty in the 90th minute, that's going to cost you a lot more than where if you're winning 3-0 and an incorrect decision go against you, it's not going to be worth as much because your probability of winning is already high at that moment in time. So we can look at the impact of refereeing decisions on the championship standings, and this is what... Oh, we've got a question.
Yes. Sorry, I hope it's okay to interrupt.
Yeah.
Actually, about this table. So you say that Rotherham is an outlier. I have sort of 2 questions. One, if you just sort of fit a normal distribution, how many standard deviations are they, above the mean? And another is that the number of events that you have is quite small. You could actually calculate a p-value, like an example, or I don't know, a simulated p-value. If you just sort of simulate all these events, assume that they are, any event, any team can have, the event go, either for or against them, and what would the distribution look like?
Okay. Yeah, so I did do a normal distribution without Rotherham, and data was normally distributed, but then when you include Rotherham, it was no longer normally distributed. But yeah, like you said, it's a small sample size really in data. I kind of imagine it as like flipping a coin between all the teams. Either the decision will go for you or the decision will go against you. So you will naturally have some teams that end up with 14, like Middlesbrough going against them and 5 only going for them. Or maybe not as much as Rotherham, but kind of Cardiff having 7 go for them and 3 go against them.
Yeah, I mean, that would, I'd be curious in seeing how the, a typical distribution would look like if the, for or against errors were random. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan?
Yeah, sorry, Matthew. Could you just say again, I didn't quite catch it, how expected points are calculated? What's the actual process for doing that?
Okay. So we use this example here. So we calculate the expected points before the decision happens, and we calculate the expected points as if the correct decision had happened afterwards.
Yeah, could you say what you mean by calculate? What does that actually?
So we have an in-play forecaster model that calculates the probabilities for from the moment the game starts until the moment the game finishes. I should have said, so expected points is calculated by the home win. So for the home team, the expected points is 3 multiplied by the home win probability plus 1 multiplied by the draw probability. And then for the away team, the expected points is calculated by the away probability multiplied by 3 plus the draw probability.
Right, so it's the in-play betting odds at any point in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
So they're not specifically from a bookmaker, but they're ones from our own in-play forecaster model that we made.
Oh, sorry, could you say more about the model then? How does that model work?
So it's a player ratings model. So what we've done is we've taken ratings from whoscored.com, and we basically scraped thousands and thousands of matches from all their player ratings, and we essentially put it into a regression model. So for this one, we just only used the championship, and we just used the rating as the dependent variable, whether they're playing at home, and then the name variable for each individual player. And then we kind of use an exponential weighting to weight more recent games. And then we take the results out from the regression model. And then we take the sum of the home team players' ratings minus the sum of the away team's players' ratings. And from that, we put it into what we call a multi-state model, which is typically used in medical statistics to measure the progression of diseases. But we use this in football instead to measure the progression of a football result. And so we'll have different states. So you'll have whether the game starts at 0-0, and then it will go, we measure it as 1 goal ahead or 2 goals ahead or 3 goals ahead based for the home team or away team. And you train the model, train date set, and we put in those ratings for each team. We tell the model whether there's been a red card or not in the game, so it's then able to adjust if a player gets sent off. And then we test it. So for the first paper that we did, we found that accuracy was, I think it was 52.85% across 2,000 matches. And then Bet365 was at like 53.5%. So it wasn't as good as the bookmakers, but it's relatively good at predicting the outcomes of games at pre-match odds.
Great, thanks a lot.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that at the start. Thanks for reminding me. So we have our standings in which we're calling a Justice League. So this is a scenario in which all refereeing decisions which were incorrect didn't happen. So what we've done for our adjusted methodology for our draw scenario is, say if a team had a decision go against them which cost them 2.1 expected points, and they had received 1 point at the end of the game, we would add the 1 point to the 2.1 points, which would equal 3.1, but we've capped that at 3 because it's not possible for a team to get 3.1 points. Whereas for the other team, pardon me, if the game was drawn and they had gained, say, 1.5 expected points, they would then be minus 0.5 points, which is obviously, again, not possible. So this would then be capped to 0 points. So we do this for every single game. If there's multiple games if there's multiple incorrect decisions in 2 games, we still use the same methodology. And this is recalculated to give a clearer view of the standings as if all refereeing decisions had been correct. So this is what we call our justice table. So we found that 10 teams remained in the exact same position. So we have some notable position changes. So QPR finished 18th rather than 12th, and Millwall finished 13th rather than 18th. And then one of the big results that we found was that Leeds sort of actually had automatic promotion to the Premier League. So what actually happened was that Leeds finished third and didn't get promotion via the playoffs. So that's quite a significant cost to them in this scenario where no incorrect decisions happened. So they should have been in the Premier League. And then at the other end of the table, we found that Birmingham should have finished 20th, safe from relegation, and Plymouth should have actually got relegated to League One. So those results summarised. So we can kind of look at each key match instance type. And so for type 1, goal awarded or not awarded, in total was 42.1 expected points lost. For straight red cards, 16.1 expected points lost. For second yellow cards, 3.08 expected points lost. Denial of a goal scoring opportunity, 5.99 expected points. And then for penalties, we had 60.5 expected points lost across the season. So how can we solve this problem? So VAR, video assistant refereeing, this was implemented in the Premier League since 2019-20 with the purpose of reducing incorrect refereeing decisions. Oh, we got a question?
So I was wondering about the adjustment that you're making and adding the actual points back in. So creating your justice table.
Yeah.
So am I right in thinking, so if you ended up winning anyway, even if you had a load of bad decisions go against you, you're not adjusted at all?
Not adjusted at all, yeah.
Is that
Still
right?
get 3 points, yeah. So like we were saying before, kind of matters that game scenario. If you get an incorrect decision go against you and you're 3-0 up, it's not going to cost you much and it's not really going to change the game whatsoever. So we take that all into consideration throughout.
I see, yeah.
So how can we solve this problem? So VAR introduced in the Premier League with the purpose of reducing incorrect refereeing decisions. So we just do a comparison between Championship and Premier League. So for the Premier League data, I got this from, there's a journalist called Dale Johnson who must know somebody at the Premier League who works for ESPN. And for the past few seasons, he's kind of just described each incorrect decision that the key match instances panel for the Premier League decided were incorrect. So that rather than do every decision like they do in the Championship, they only do decisions based on ones that VAR do or do not intervene on. Well, do intervene on, sorry. So in the Championship, there's 552 games, whereas in the Premier League, there's only 380. So the numbers in brackets is how many incorrect decisions happened in the Premier League, and the number next to it is how I've inflated it to match the 552 games that the Championship has. So for type 1 goal awarded or not awarded, for the Championship had 61 incorrect decisions, whereas for the Premier League, it would have only 11. For straight red cards in Championship, there's 29, whereas in the Premier League, there was 13. VAR, for second caution dismissals, VAR doesn't intervene for this. So there's 0 for the Premier League, whereas there was 12 for the Championship. Denial of a goal scoring opportunity, there was 14 in the Championship with 0 in the Premier League. And for type 5 for penalties, there was 112 incorrect in the Championship and 20 in the Premier League. So we're already noticing quite a significant difference between the Championship and the Premier League with and without VAR. So we can kind of look at the impact on each team in the Premier League as we did for the Championship. So for total decisions going against them, the most that a team would have had, again, I've put in brackets is what it is for the Premier League, inflated to the Championship to match the games. So for Liverpool, Brighton and Nottingham Forest, they all received 5 incorrect decisions, whereas Coventry received 17 incorrect decisions across the season, sorry. Total points lost. Nottingham Forest lost 3.14 expected points, whereas Coventry lost 10.79 expected points. Total decisions 4. we saw that Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Sheffield United had 4 decisions go for them. And then we have the outlier Rotherham, as we discussed before. And then total expected points gained, we have Sheffield United at 3.64 and Rotherham at 14.68. So the teams that have gained the most, Manchester United gained 2.83 expected points. So when you compare that to Rotherham, it's significantly reduced. For most points lost, Liverpool, that should be, 3.1 expected points in comparison to Middlesbrough, 5.27. I think this was the season where Liverpool had, when they played Tottenham, and they had Luis Diaz goal given offside, even though he was quite far onside. So that would have had a big impact, because I think they went on to lose that game. So then we can look at the justice table for the Premier League. So I've kind of highlighted the important positions in the Premier League. So you got first, the champions, which are Man City. And then from 1 to 4, you have your Champions League places. 5th position, you have Europa League. 6th position, you have Conference League. And then the bottom 3, you have your relegation. And when we did our Justice League, we found that in those key positions that have actually have an impact on the following season, that everyone remained in the exact same position in the Premier League that had VAR. So when we compare the expected points lost between the Championship and the Premier League, so for Type 1, the Championship had an expected loss of 42.1 expected points, whereas for the Championship, just under 6, a huge significant difference. Again, for straight red cards, 16.1 expected points lost, compared to the Premier League at 6.53 expected points. Again, massive loss. Second yellow cards, Premier League with VAR can't intervene for these. Denial of a goal scoring opportunity. There was 0 incorrect in the Premier League in comparison to the Championship of 5.99. And then for penalties, there was 60.5 expected points lost in the Championship in comparison to the Premier League that only had 12.54. So when you sum them all together, you're essentially using 5 times the amount of expected points each season in the Championship in comparison to the Premier League. Kind of highlighting that difference, the importance of VAR and how it can impact and make sure that the correct results are happening, so you get a fairer league. So the next part of our analysis is to run a simulation. And what we're going to do is we're going to run a simulation for the Championship as if it had the same number of incorrect decisions as the Premier League. So the Premier League had 31 incorrect decisions. But again, as it had 380 games, we've multiplied it by 1.45 to match the 552 games in the Championship. So in this case, there's 45 incorrect decisions that we're going to model within the simulation. I've removed all second yellow cards from the data set, as VAR can't intervene in these. And we're going to look at the probability of finishing the top 2 for automatic promotions, 3rd to 6th for the playoffs, and then bottom 3 for relegation. So we found that Ipswich and Leeds swap in comparison. Oh, other question?
Yes, so I was curious, how exactly do you assign these 45 incorrect decisions? Like you just,
They're just totally random. So the model will decide, each loop of the simulation will decide which 45 incorrect decisions to be included for that loop of the simulation. So I'll just take a random 45, run it, calculate what the league table should have been.
So you assign, incorrect decision 1, it's assigned to match number 27 in the list of matches.
No, so we use the ones that actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just randomly choose in the game, in each simulation run, which of the incorrect decisions happened with the removal of second yellow cards.
So you're holding constant the minute in which it happened as well.
Yeah,
which is important. That's a pretty big ingredient in the way you're calculating these costs. All right, thanks.
So we run our Justice League from a simulation, compare our simulation to the Justice League. We found that Ipswich have an 88.26% chance of promotion compared to Leeds that have 11.74% chance of promotion. This is partly due to second yellow cards being dropped from the data set. I think in one of the games in which Leeds received the second yellow card, that they then went on to lose that game. So when we're doing our justice table where all decisions are correct, that has quite a significant effect on the league standings. So it kind of highlights the question, should VAR be able to intervene with second yellow card dismissals in the Premier League? I think it's probably a good thing to introduce myself, but I might be slightly biased. So then we look at promotion, playoff positions. So Ipswich had 11.74% chance to finish from 3rd to 6th. Leeds have an 88.26% chance. Southampton 100%. West Brom 96.79%. Norwich 98.38%. And then Middlesbrough, who finished 8th, 2 places away from the playoff positions, have a 4.83% chance. This is because they were bottom of our teams that were impacted on expected points lost. So they lost a total of 5.69 expected points, which would have given them a 4.83% chance of ending up in the playoff positions. We then, for relegation, have Rotherham, who finished last by quite a margin, 100%, Huddersfield 100%, Birmingham, who did get relegated. Within the simulation, they only got relegated 20% of the time, whereas Plymouth got relegated 67.73% of the time. Sheffield Wednesday got relegated 10.76% of the time, and Blackburn got relegated 1.49% of the time. And so this kind of shows, if VAR was to be implemented, that Birmingham wouldn't have faced that significant cost of getting relegated to League One. Things worked out quite well for Birmingham because they got some new ownership the season that they got relegated, and I think they won League One with the highest points total last season, so then got promoted back to the Championship. But the question is, do fans want VAR in the Championship? So a football fan surveyed heard from 9,645 fans in 2023 found that 63.3% of supporters opposed VAR. Only 5.5% had a positive experience of VAR within the stadium, and 92% said that decisions took too long, in comparison to a football fan survey in 2017, which found that 74.6% of fans were in favour of VAR. And so how would the Championship balance the significant cost of incorrect refereeing decisions have on the league, whilst trying to keep the product just as entertaining for the fans? So some VAR takeaways from the entertainment, so fans are clearly unhappy with it. Other sports kind of have their own version of VAR. So in cricket, you have umpire decision review system, which they kind of, when a captain reviews a decision, they kind of create this entertainment where there's a big countdown before the decision is eventually shown to the crowd, kind of keeping that entertainment. Same used to happen in Hawkeye. I'm not sure because Hawkeye's changed recently. I know at Wimbledon they had it so Hawkeye basically reviewed every single decision. But before that, when a player would review a decision, everyone in the crowd would start clapping in anticipation for what the decision would be. In American football, a coach can challenge a referee call. So actually, what they did in the under-20s and under-17s Women's World Cup was they trialed football video support, where a coach had 2 challenges. I think this could kind of increase the entertainment within a game, as coaches have pressure on them to make the right decision, to challenge the incorrect call or correct call. And I think it kind of takes the pressure away from the referees, and then also kind of creates a new talking point narrative that it's on the coach, they made the wrong decision at this time, instead of kind of being like, oh, well, the referee made this wrong decision. So summary, when quantifying the cost between the Premier League and Championship, the Championship lost 127.7 expected points across the whole season, compared to 24.99 expected points in the Premier League. Plymouth had a 67.73% chance of relegation if VAR would have been implemented in the Championship. And so we can clearly see from the results that teams are affected both negatively and positively, with a significant reduction in the Premier League. So some future work that I'm looking to do with the data set. So kind of within a match, are there likely to be more incorrect decisions given to a home team or away team? Do referees subconsciously try to rebalance after they give an incorrect decision during the game? And then kind of look at, do referees have an unconscious bias to give a larger number of incorrect decisions against players from a minority ethnic group background compared to white players? And then also look to kind of, as we have the cost of each decision that the referee makes, and we have the referee that makes the incorrect decisions, look to kind of create an ELO rating based on referee performances, based on decisions they make. So a larger incorrect decision would reduce the rating more, or a correct decision that would have cost a lot of expected points would then increase the rating. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. There's my LinkedIn if you enjoyed it or got any questions that you want to ask later. So yeah, any questions?
Great. Thank you very much, Matthew. I'm giving you a team's round of applause, and you've got a couple of other ones there. Ian has his hand up already, so go ahead, Ian.
So I guess I was wondering, are the on-field referees better in the Premier League? So are you sort of oversubscribing the effects of VAR between the two different leagues? Can you get a sense to what extent the on-field referees in the Premier League are better than the others? Because perhaps some of it is due to them, and then some of it is due to the VAR.
Yeah, so unfortunately we can't quantify that, because we don't know if the referees have a rating system for each referee, where they go, okay, well, this referee's ranked 1, 2, 3, and this is how this referee will have the most important games in the Premier League, or this referee might have the least important games in the Championship. Yeah, we don't know that information. It'd be interesting to know whether referees have become more reliant on VAR to kind of, if they're not sure about decision, but they're not going to be confident enough to make decision, knowing the fact that they've got VAR to kind of support them. Whereas the referees in the Championship, they've got a split second to make a decision on a game that's moving so quickly. So you could almost say that the Championship games are harder to referee because they don't have that support system of VAR to kind of help them through the game.
Sure. And when the panel are making their decision as to whether this decision was correct or incorrect, do they already know what the referee did? Or are they being shown this fresh for the first time? Okay.
So they're actually... before they meet, they're given all the videos for each decision so that they can review them. And then when they come together, they then review each decision as a group and kind of discuss it and say how they feel the decision should have been for or against being correct.
Yeah. So my gut feeling, my prior would be that if you already know that a referee has gone one way, you'll be more inclined to go with the referee when it's close. So the times in which they've gone against the referee, I would imagine, would be more clear-cut cases where the referee has made a mistake. If it's close, you're kind of primed to go in the same direction as the person who's already made the decision, I imagine. Yeah,
that's why I was kind of, it would have been nice to have known because the 5 are ex-players and coaches. So it would have been interesting to know for each decision how, as a group, they would have leaned, whether it was 5 that said the decision was correct and 0 said it was incorrect, or if it was that 3 had said it was correct and 2 had said it was incorrect. I think that would have added a lot more depth to the analysis and looked at kind of the bias towards the people that were actually deciding whether they're correct and incorrect.
Now, just got one final one. So I remember you said you were treating all the events were independent.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a feeling amongst fans that referees try to level things up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if there's any empirical evidence for that, or is that just like fan folklore?
I think it's just fan folklore from the kind of initial analysis that we've done. We've kind of felt that the referee, if they've made an incorrect decision for one team, that they're actually more likely to make the incorrect decision for the same team again.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of the opposite, if anything.
Okay.
So on
Thanks
that,
very much.
there was a Roses talk maybe 4-6 months ago. In fact, no, January. Leo Moabito, who looked at whether decisions even themselves out. He appeared to find evidence that they do. So referees will try and correct things.
Okay.
So there is another piece of work out there
Mm.
trying to look at precisely that question that you put as your future research, Matthew.
Well, this is the issue, is that it's just one season's worth of data. We can't compare whether last season had the same or similar results. That's the issue with it being at one season. I have asked the people at the EFL if I can have the data. They did initially say I could have it, but then I'm not sure whether they were happy with the results that we provided to them.
You have to work harder then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an interesting point there just before the next couple of people ask questions. I think one is, of course, if you give a penalty against one team and you give a penalty to the other team to even things out. The other one, I guess, is if you, as a referee, know you've given an incorrect call and you feel the need to somehow balance that out. You know, the thing that I always think happens is my personal bias rather than anything that's empirical. But it always seems that if a referee and linesman have given a contentious corner kick, when the corner goes into the area, there's a mysterious foul given.
Foul.
The defending team gets the free kick, and it's evened itself out that way.
I think it'd be interesting because at the Sports Economics Conference, I was speaking to Andren, who'd done his research on referees, and he's a referee himself. And I was discussing it with him, and he was saying that referees do watch what happened in the first half in half time. So they will know whether they've made the correct decision or wrong decision, or if it's a game that's being televised, their friends will text them at half time to be like, oh, you made a wrong decision here. So it's not something I've looked at yet, but you could look to see whether there's something with that half time for the decisions that happen, incorrect decisions happen in the first half in comparison to the second half, whether there actually is a noticeable difference.
Yeah. Excuse me. Alan has got a question. Alan, go ahead.
Thanks, James, and thanks, Matthew. Wow, what a presentation! This was an excellent talk, which I think you did really well on. It's raised so many thoughts and things for me. I won't take up too much time because I know there are other people that want to ask questions, but I just wondered whether or not you had found any correlation. We talk about we've had some conversations just now about whether referees even things out. But I just wondered whether there was still a correlation between the number of incorrect decisions going against teams and their ability, e.g., do the stronger teams benefit more from this, or vice versa?
Yeah, that's not something that we have quite explored yet, but it's something that we would definitely be able to do, because within the in-play forecasting model, we do rate the teams.
Yeah.
And so you would be able to see whether the teams that were stronger were actually getting more decisions go for them rather than against them. And then we could even look to see kind of where they finished at the end of the season. But just based on the results with Rotherham, who finished last in the league, they actually received the most incorrect decisions in their favour. So it might be worth doing two analyses, is one with and one without Rotherham, because they've got such a heavy swing because they received so many incorrect decisions going for them and being last as well.
Yeah, I guess the results could be quite sensitive, couldn't they, to Rotherham's data. What about home and away as well? Is that anything that you've kind of looked at or plan to look at?
Yeah, so I have done the analysis for that, and we did find that incorrect decisions going in the favour of the home team was more in comparison to decisions going for the away team.
So the home teams are benefiting more from the incorrect decisions. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's interesting that. I have to say that toward the end, when you talk about sort of the overall impact of this, I think if I was a Birmingham City fan and listening to your talk, I would be sort of hitting the social media right now to sort of say this should be. I think you put a strong case for having VAR, although I am one of the 70 odd percent, 60 odd percent that's against it, but because of the value of it. Just one more thing, if I can, going back to a point Danielle raised earlier on about p-values and sort of getting a sense of what margins of error or uncertainty there might be in the results. One thing that occurred to me, and I don't know if you've done this, but rather than looking at the sort of a p-value associated with the expected points, either plus or minus, could you look at the number of correct versus incorrect, the number of decisions that went in favour versus against the team? So it becomes just basically a simple test of a binary test of a single proportion. So if you've got a team that has 6 in favour and 19 against, you can get a simple p-value out that way.
Yeah, no, we've not done that, but we did that for the home and away where we like put them all together.
Right.
But no, I've not done that for individual team basis.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the single seasons, I mean, you did make the point that it's only a single season's data. So I suspect you're going to get a lot of p-values above 0.05 and a lot of kind of, but that could be because there's not much power in that sort of testing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then also doing it kind of saying, well, team, say Rotherham, for example, we'll use Leeds example, they had 13 decisions go for them and 13 decisions go against them. But you'd be like, well, that's totally fair. But they actually lost almost 4 expected points because of that game scenario.
Right, I see.
So there's all these different nuances that you have to take into consideration, not just a straight comparison.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll shut up, James, so you can let other people have a go.
Thanks.
No, thank you, Alan. And just to say on the credibility of your results, Matthew, the fact that you found United get extra point tells me that it's definitely a highly reliable strategy. So
well, I thought it was wrong because Liverpool had the most go against them, which I was shocked by.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good to get those biases out in the open, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah. Thanks, Matthew. Again, a really interesting talk. I'd really like to ask you to actually come back and give another talk and explain the methodology in more detail. I know you did it a little bit, but in fact, I think to me that was actually, I was sort of trying to figure out what was going on there. It struck me that what you're doing is very much in the tradition of run expectancy in baseball. It seems like it's the same basic idea of identifying states and then identifying probabilities of outcomes to the end of the game, in the same way that run expectancy is the expected number of runs from a given state to the end of the inning. So that seems very credible and smart way to go about the problem. The thing that struck me, though, the thing that I kept struggling with is the effects here are huge. You get these referee effects are massive, and I'm afraid that just makes me skeptical. I'm not convinced that the referees can have that big an influence, and so I was trying to think out why would it possibly be that this might be exaggerated? And one I think is reason is because your starting point is that the panel is correct in that sense, that if the panel is correct about the outcome, then absolutely a lost goal here or there is going to have a vast influence of the outcome. But surely there must be an enormous standard error around the panel's decision. And if you factor that in, then these effects will just vanish. They'll just become tiny. And because, as you say, when your model simulation seems to come up with something that seems sensible to me, which is to say that it's possible to build a model which mimics the bookmaker odds, but really can't do any better than that. And I think there's a number of models out there that are, James's does it, mine does it, various people, where all our models could get close to the bookies, but we can't beat them. which it sounds right. But if that's right, then the chances, given that there's so much noise in a game, the chances that these very small number of decisions in games, and it's not a large number, have such a vast impact on the total number of points seems to me to be just implausible. So I don't know if you think that's wrong, but I mean, as I say, I'd be interested to get your reaction.
Yeah, I think because football is such a low-scoring game where one goal does significantly change the probabilities of a home win and a draw and away win, or a red card significantly changes the likelihood of certain outcomes. So I think that first of all will have a significant effect that kind of why those expected points are so large. And when there's so many of them happening across the season, when you accumulate them all together, it does 127.7 expected points is like, wow, that's a lot of expected points across the season. And then to your first point about the panel itself, I think they reviewed like in total 1,700 decisions. So for them to find, let me go back to start because I want to just make up numbers without. So there was 1,579 key match instances that the panel reviewed, in which 1,351 were correct and 228 were incorrect. Like I said, because it's only one season's worth of data, it's hard to know whether that's what it would be. And like you were saying, it's very, very opinionated for the panel for them to decide whether it was the correct decision or the wrong decision. We don't know what biases the panel had, but we think this is the best that we can do based on the data that we've got. The championship did start to publish data for last season's, but they've only published half of it, but they don't actually give individual games in which the incorrect decisions happened. And for about halfway through, I think it was just under half of the 228. So it's like 114, but I think it was a more like 107. So it was kind of still on the same trajectory to kind of have the same amount of incorrect decisions as in that season. But going back to what you said, it is hard to know whether the panel did make the right or wrong decision. That's kind of the one flaw within. Well, there could be other flaws. I don't think there is, but that could be the one flaw that you can highlight. But there's 5 of them, and they've all got to make their own decision, and they're ex-players and coaches. So you would expect them to kind of have a high likelihood of coming as a group together to get the correct decision, I think.
Yeah, but you think there's no likelihood that they're 100% correct all of the time as well?
Yeah,
right? That's not. Wait, what? Well, you could simulate this by saying, assume that they're correct 75% of the time and incorrect 25% of the time. How would that then affect your? Because I think what that would do is that would bring down the impact on the points impact. And I think I would really worry about going. I mean, this is the sort of thing that might change policy, right? And so that so actually for once it matters. But what this could do is this could push people into thinking, oh my God, we have to do this, when actually maybe it's just really not that essential, because really maybe it doesn't make that difference once you take a different view of the the infallibility of the papal decisions here.
Yeah, I do like the idea of running the simulations, like you were saying with the 75%, but in that case you would have to say that 25% of the correct decisions were incorrect, which would then inflate the incorrect decisions anyway. So it would probably still work out to be a similar number, if I've understood what you were saying. Because if you're saying that they've only got 75% correct for the incorrect decisions, that means they've got some of the correct decisions wrong as well.
Yeah.
Which would then balance it out.
Yeah. Well, it's worth looking at. I think it's worth trying seeing that.
Yeah. No, I do like that idea.
But anyway, great paper, really, really interesting. I'd really like to see the underlying paper about how your methodology here. So.
Okay, I can send you that if you want.
Oh yeah, please do. I'd love to see it.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Stefan. Any more questions and comments? Johan put in the chat basically a question that was asked by whoever asked the first question. I can't remember anymore. Daniel's got his hand up.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe I missed it, but can you can you come up with an estimate of the monetary cost of these incorrect decisions? How much money did Birmingham lose by being relegated rather than not being relegated? And how much money did the other team? I mean, maybe things just balance out, right? The team that was relegated, lost a bunch of money, and the team that sort of incorrectly was saved, gained a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's quite hard to quantify it because a lot of the details on how much teams earn and spend is quite secretive. We don't know kind of what players Birmingham lost and who would have stayed if they had stayed up, or whether they would have still gone anyway.
Yeah. But there's probably some sort of revenue sharing of the league that championship teams versus League One teams that we know. Maybe you can get a lower bound of what the just or excluding sort of player transfers and and that other stuff.
So yeah, for the championship, if Birmingham had stayed there, they would have received 7 million in TV revenue, whereas in League One they received 2 million. But then you obviously have stuff of sponsorships decreases if you go from the championship to League One, kind of all that kind of stuff that would be quite difficult to calculate. And likewise for Leeds, they would have got promoted, then you're talking hundreds of millions.
Right. I mean, the other, and this is sort of broader, it's not right to your paper, but has anybody tried to calculate a willingness to pay for VAR or for getting rid of VAR? I mean, based on your survey, it sounds as if most fans would like to get rid of VAR at the stadium. How much would you be willing to? How much more would you be willing to pay to attend a match at the stadium if there were no VAR?
Yeah, good question. Not sure how you would calculate that. I know from the team's perspective in the Premier League, I think not last season, maybe the season before, Wolves brought it to the Premier League panel, like the Premier League vote were to get rid of VAR, and I think they were the only team that voted to get rid of VAR. I think they'd had a couple of seasons where they had what they felt was a lot of decisions go against them, whereas all the other teams were still in favour because they felt like the cost without it, as we've shown here, would be significant across the league, even if it is worth the referee possibly taking too long, or it is even more frustrating when they get it still wrong, even though they have VAR, but it still reduces the amount of errors that happen within the game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody sort of agrees with this, but I think there's an additional cost is that, incorrect, decisions, make fans have something to talk about for years and decades, right? And so, we still talk about Maradona's hand of God and, England, stealing the World Cup in 1966. I know this is an English crowd, and so, I'm teasing you guys. So that's also has some values, right?
It does, but sports played so that the team that should have won does win. But like you said, those talking points, like sometimes after games, people don't even take into consideration how their team has performed. They're just so obsessed with the referee's performance, whether they got the decision right or wrong, because the paper was originally meant to be the cost of incorrect refereeing decisions, and we kind of totaled how many expected points each referee lost across the season. But we just felt like referees have got such a hard job as it is that we didn't want to put even more pressure on them, saying you're getting all these decisions wrong and this is who's doing it, and why is this referee now refereeing in the Premier League when they made so many incorrect decisions in the Championship. And then we were slightly worried because we were talking to Kieran Maguire about it, and he's even heard of clubs talking about possibly trying to sue referees for making incorrect refereeing decisions. So it's just a crazy world in football. So yeah, I think the implementation of it, even though it wouldn't have those talking points like you just said, I think it's the fairest thing to do and probably the right thing to do, even though you wouldn't get those kind of events that we still talk about 50, 60, 70 years later.
Well, maybe you do, right? Because you get things like that Sheffield United goal, which happened because VAR was turned off for a few minutes or something weird.
Yeah, it was out the goal
Yeah, but
line
it's just much more
technology.
rare. It's it's just much more unlikely that you have these things, and
I think there's a
they
big
will
point.
still happen, like James just said.
Yeah.
But the idea is that if we can reduce them, then surely that's a good thing for the game.
I think also
Especially,
you've got the wider narrative, right, that you've appealed to there, Matthew. Sorry, my connection is quite poor, so I might be cutting in and out. But the wider narrative is incredibly poisonous and negative in this whole area.
yeah,
And VAR or not VAR I don't think is necessarily going to alter that really. I think you're right to kind of think about the framing of your work, because presumably actually, the other side of this is that you've highlighted 300 or so goals that were looked at, which means that that's 1 in 5 goals. So that's quite a lot of goals that aren't even at all contentious, because there must be 1,500 goals plus in the Championship in this given season. So actually, the referees get an awful lot correct, which isn't really highlighted very much.
And I think if fans were to know the cost of the Championship in the Premier League, they would go, well, actually, maybe it is worth having it in the Premier League, because it could save my team from getting relegated, or it could mean that we get Champions League instead of Europa League. So yeah, I think it's kind of, as a stakeholder, as a fan, you don't kind of understand what the consequences are without VAR.
Any more questions or comments? Adam, go ahead.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you very much for this. I think it's found really, really interesting. I kind of wanted to build on Daniel's point a little bit around the potential financial impact. While it's not something that can be, like you say, it's very hard to provide an exact value to these things. I'm wondering whether there's a potential sort of mentioned of a lower bound as a potential impact there around actually looking at the rough change that we do see. And there's plenty of data that goes back that I know Kieran definitely has, and people like myself have, and more than happy to have a conversation with you about this, around potential falls in match day broadcasting and commercial income over the last 15, 20 years that we see from both promotion and relegation. I agree with your points entirely that it becomes very, very dangerous to potentially then go, well, as a result, we must blame the referees entirely as a result of this point. But actually, I think I think you would be able to quantify it potentially a little bit better long term than what's currently there, without saying, and as a result, it's exactly this amount, and opens up to the inevitably numerous legal challenges that come off the back of it. So not so much a question, but more of a potential point on maybe future direction.
Sorry, was there? There wasn't a question there, was there? It was just a kind of a
Sorry, no, it was more on a potential thought or a potential direction that you could go down rather
Yeah.
than actually a particular question. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it is something that you could do, but I'm not sure it's something that I want to do from. I think when you start quoting, like you said, when you start quoting numbers of this team should have got this or this team lost this, it falls into a dangerous category of, especially like to my team, Everton. They're currently getting sued by Burnley. They just had an out of court agreement with Leeds. So if you start naming things, I don't want teams suing referees or different bodies and then they're quoting my name.
Cool, thanks, Adam. Any final questions and comments?
I was just going to say it might be too late for you now, Matthew, about getting drawn into court cases. You have opened up floodgates here for yourself.
Yeah, I know. And I did, as I got the results, I was like, okay, I need to double check to make sure what I've done is correct before I show someone the results. And I need to triple check them and quadruple check them because they're quite big accusations and statements that I'm putting out.
Yeah, and that was really my concern as well, that you're coming up with some very, very large numbers in a world which is very uncertain. And I think I really think you're basically on the right track here with the methodology, and this is a smart way of going about it. But I just think somehow this doesn't, for me, it sort of fails the smell test on the actual sides of the numbers. That's all.
Do you have any other kind of thought process on how it could be done, or?
No, well, that's why I want to see what your methodology is, because it seems like what you're doing is absolutely right. I think the process seems completely correct. The problem, again, I think that my first guess is the problem is believing believing the panel as if they really know what they're talking about, which they almost certainly don't, right? I mean, it's a bunch of opinion. I mean, there is likely to be wrong. There's maybe some way of saying, why not assume that each panel member is as likely to be correct in their judgment as the referee in the game themselves, or even slightly less?
You would assume that they would be more accurate because they're able to watch it replay, get different angles, whereas it's just dependent on where that referee is at that moment in time. What they can see is someone in the way of them for them to make the decision, and then the panel itself can review it. Like with offsides, you would expect them to get the vast majority of them correct. But like you said, I think the issue is because it's so many opinions involved, and football is a game of opinions, and one person can say it's right, one person can say it's wrong, and the rules are interpreted differently from everybody, and they change every year. That it can be very hard to kind of say that this is right and this is wrong.
And the offsides aren't having a big effect on the points here, right? Are they? I mean, that's not a big part of it, is it?
So offsides is within the goals awarded or not awarded. I'm not sure exactly on the exact amount that it would have been.
Yeah, I mean that might yes. I think that's a fair point to say that some of these are less judgmental with the benefit of hindsight than others, right? The red card, I mean, essentially the red cards and second cautions and denial of goal scoring opportunity, and everything apart from the offside seems to be questionable here, right? But you're right. I think the offside that they should know better. So again, you could assume some they'll know better, some they'll know worse. But assuming that they just have papal infallibility seems to be something you need to get away from.
Yeah.
And maybe, as you say, even if you do that, maybe if you simulate it, it still comes up with the same answer. But that in itself would be very interesting.
I mean, one thing
it's really, fundamentally, I think this is the right way to go.
I mean, the discussion there says that offsides are only going to happen in the context of goals. being actually put the ball going in the net. So if an offside happened, and the game stopped, but it was wrong, presumably that's not in this data set, I presume.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because I haven't looked at each individual decision in depth to see what has happened. But I would assume that it wouldn't be involved if a player's just gone through 1-on-1 and the referees just put their flag up straight away and they just stop and they don't actually put the ball in the back of the net. Then I'm not sure if that would be included in the data set. It's something I'd have to look at.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously there's a much lower chance that affects things because you've got a much lower probability it becomes a goal than what actually is a goal. But it's still quite interesting. I don't want to hold people up. Ian was next, then Daniele.
It's a bit related. So I was just thinking again about the comparison with the Premier League and the Championship and what a correct decision is, and whether a correct decision in the Premier League is the same thing as a correct decision in the Championship. And the reason why I say so is because it seemed to me when VAR was introduced, one of the things that angered fans a lot was that rules started to change to actually help VAR. So like if it was like a brush on your fingers, it was a penalty. I know they changed that now. But the one I think that's still in place, which annoys a lot of people, is the toenail offside. So when I was playing and when I've been a linesman, just as an amateur, but you never give toenail offsides because that's in line. They're in line if it's a toenail offside. Yeah. But now the VAR can see that, yeah, they are a toenail offside and they give it. And I wonder in the Championship, when the panel are reviewing these decisions, what have they got in mind? Do they still think a toenail offside is a toenail offside, or do they say, oh no, that's level, referee made a right call?
I think it's kind of more just an eye test for the Championship because they don't have like the VAR in the Premier League where it's semi-automated and they have the figures of each person, exactly where their body is. But kind of to follow up your point on kind of penalties being given, it's something I just thought about now, but they also have the like clear and obvious error. It's not that whether the panel think it was right or wrong, it's whether VAR gets involved because it's a clear and obvious error that the referee has made. So that might be something they need to put a bit of thought into, if that might change something, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Daniele.
Yeah, on a comment like Stefan's view that this that the numbers the size is really big. I actually think that I think you're doing things correctly, but you're probably getting smaller numbers in terms of the effect on the final table than what sort of naive estimates will do that will just sort of count the correct and incorrect decisions, right? Because if there's an incorrect decision in the 10th minute of a game, like you'll find justice tables out there on the internet that say, oh well, this outcome would have been 1-0, and you're calculating a probabilistic size of that effect, so which is going to be less than the full 3 points. If you score in the 10th minute, the other team still has 80 minutes to recover, so it doesn't really raise the probability of winning from 0 to 1 or whatever it is, 0.5 to 1. So this is something that you could also say that says, look, my estimates are not that they're smaller, the impact of the league than what a naive approach would do.
What, they're smaller than crazy people who feel
naive people, right?
You're better than the loonies, Matthew. That's
that's kind.
Well, on that positive note, thank you, Matthew. Really interesting talk.
Thank you.
Really interesting discussion as well. Wish you well as you pursue that work and as you move forward with your PhD as well. We will meet again next week. Next week, we're going to have Shane Sanders from Syracuse and James Boudreau. And they, as yet, haven't given me a title, but I suspect it's on basketball. I will get a title, and you'll see that in the reminder ahead of next week's session. But thank you, everyone, for attending and taking part. And I wish you all a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Matthew. Really interesting.